Welcome to Dreamers to Leaders, Keeping It Real with Melody podcast. Melody is a classic dreamer who started as a flight attendant and worked her way to now a tech fashion trendsetter, thought leader, and dynamic entrepreneur in various industries. This podcast is for the dreamers and doers. Learn how to think, act, and speak big as business leaders share how they turned from dreamers to leaders.
Make your relationship more fulfilling, refreshing, exciting, and more satisfying, then this episode is for you. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Laurie Love. Hey, Laurie, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, Melody. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am great. I can't wait to listen to what you're going to share with us this morning. So let's begin. So we usually start with your journey. How was it like before you got into this field of being a certified erotic blueprint coach and an accelerated evolution guide? So it's not all the time that we hear that from people that's an elevator pitch that they share or that it's in the resume. So it's quite unique. So share.
That it is. Yes. So what I found was that I had a very high stress job and I was in the business world, corporate world, sort of man's world. I was an accountant and I, was part of like the whole rat race, getting ahead in my career, projects, deadlines. And I felt like I had lost myself. I wasn't happy. My relationship was suffering. My relationship was great the first couple of years, when you have all those happy hormones and everything's going well and you're getting to know each other. And then about 7 years into my relationship, I was really upset. I was sexually unsatisfied. And I felt kind of dead inside. I didn't feel connected to myself. I didn't feel connected to my partner. And, I thought that, I needed to start my life over again. I needed a new relationship. I needed to do something different with my life. And, so I found myself at a crossroads. And when I sat down with my partner and I talked to him about how I was feeling, he was like, well, there's got to be something that you can do about it, that we can do about it. And that's when I was introduced to my mentor, Jaya. And Jaya is a world-renowned sexologist and sexological body worker and author of many books on sex and sexuality. And after we started working with her, she developed these 5 erotic blueprint types. And once I learned about my erotic blueprint types, everything made sense. I understood why I was stressed out, what was happening with me energetically, why I had low energy, why I had low libido, why I wasn't connecting with my partner. When I learned about what his erotic blueprints were, it totally made sense why we weren't connecting because our blueprints were totally opposite. And so over the last 10 years, I've been on this journey, which has led me to be a certified erotic blueprint coach, in discovering who I am as an erotic being, which also I'm discovering who I am as a woman, as a person, as a human on the planet, what my likes are, what my dislikes are. I felt that, a lot of my life was like going through the motions, getting it done, surviving, getting through the next day, the next year. And I thought, at some point, everything's going to make sense. All this hard work is going to pay off, right? But I just found myself like depressed and upset and not loving and enjoying life. And so once I found the erotic blueprints and I started to feed myself both in self-love, self-care, self-discovery, and I started really nurturing myself and taking care of myself and doing the same thing in my relationship. I stopped being judgmental. I stopped being critical of my partner. I stopped thinking he was doing everything wrong. I stopped blaming him, and my world has just blossomed. I feel like a new person. I feel like the person that I've always wanted to be and meant to be. And through like the accelerated evolution process, I have been able to heal a lot of limiting beliefs that I had from the past. a lot of programming that was, taught to me when I was young, and then as a teenager, and then in my 20s and my 30s, it's all around us. And so I've found that these tools have helped me become happier, more fulfilled, more joyful. My health is better. I have a much better quality of life. And so I decided that, like, instead of keeping somebody's books and being the controller for a company, it was more important for me to, change directions and help people with their intimate life and their sexuality, because these two subjects are so intertwined. Intimacy in communication, and just, the energy of being in relation with someone, whether it's a friend or a family member or an animal, we can consider that intimacy. And then in the realm of sexuality, where we're having sex, we're discovering who we are as erotic beings, and enjoying our bodies, and opening them up, and really feeling and experiencing all the wonderful pleasure and delight that these human bodies, give us.
So instead of searching from outside, the answer truly is inside, right? In a lot of ways. So Laurie, from if there's a barometer of boringness to exciting, you literally jump from accounting to being an erotic blueprint coach. So from here to here, I guess I could consider accounting and insurance kind of in the same in the same meter. But so
yeah, the financial services world is not very glamorous. We were trying to make it as glamorous as we possibly could, and having fun with it, but it's not very glamorous.
It truly is
very necessary.
It's necessary, but it could put anyone to sleep, right? Not in a good sense. But so there's actually two sides to this. There's the erotic blueprint, and there's the accelerated evolution guide. I have always been interested on the whole evolution of the human species and as a person, right? So I really believe that we're meant to evolve, right? To always seek for your higher, better self. So as an accelerated evolution guide, how do you help one evolve and get to that higher self, better self?
As you were saying, instead of seeking answers from outside, we look at what's going on inside. And so what's really unique about accelerated evolution is that we go inside. The beauty with accelerated evolution is that instead of looking outside for the answers and seeking, advice and what should I do about this, all of our answers are contained inside. We contain all of the wisdom that we need. We have this beautiful sense of intuition, this gut feeling. We can connect with our hearts and really feel into what it is that is best for us. Accelerated evolution is beautiful because it connects us with these parts of ourselves that we don't always pay attention to. We have a tendency to ignore. We put it to the side. We look for something else, to solve our problems. And through these processes, we really evolve through the wisdom that is contained in our bodies, in ourselves, that needs a voice. It needs a space to be heard.
So you talk about voice, right? So mental chatter and the inner talk. What would you recommend, for our listeners out there? The truth of the matter, there's how many thousands per second, in terms of the things that race in one's mind, right? And say, yes, you want to go, inside and reflect and whatnot. What would you say is the voice that you need to listen to? Cause there's going to be all these different, chatters, right? How does one really understand that? Yeah, that's the one. That's the voice that I need to to listen to?
Yeah. I feel like the voice that I know that I need to listen to is sometimes it's the one that's talking the loudest. Sometimes it's the one that's like screaming at me, trying to get my attention. And then sometimes it's the voice that's really quiet. I find that through different meditation processes, I'm able to drop in and go into a different layer, that's not on the surface. Like you said, we have a lot of mind chatter. And so it's like, which thoughts do you listen to?
Exactly.
Which thoughts do you lead to? What I do is I go into my body and I connect with my heart, with my gut, with a pain that I'm having. And then I ask it, I talk to it and I say, what is it that you need to tell me? What is it that you want me to know right now? And through accelerated evolution processes, there are a series of questions that you can ask. And it's a process that I guide people through. It's like a guided meditation so that we can really communicate with the part that wants to talk. And we can also I wouldn't say purge is the right word, but clear. We can clear a lot of the mind chatter by asking the same question over and over and over and over again until everything is emptied out. And then you're left with like the true essence or the difficult stuff or the stuff that you didn't want to talk about. It's like when in society, when we meet someone and they say, how are you doing today? Our canned response is, I'm doing great. I'm okay. Right. But if you ask them again, so how are you really doing? You dig to another layer. Something might have happened this morning that bothered you or yesterday. And so, we take that mask off and we keep asking the question, so how are you today? Tell me something about how you're doing today. And we keep asking. That way we get to the real heart of it.
I think it was Steven Spielberg who said something about, surely there's going to be a lot of pull from maybe your parents, your loved ones to be this, to be that. And what he encourages his kids, apparently from that article, is really listen to the whisper in your mind, the inner voice that sometimes is not the loudest, but the one that tickles you. You know what I mean? That kind of gives you that high. And I guess you cannot really describe it, but it's something that's felt. And I think I like what you said about, there's that guided meditation, because sometimes, people could just kind of go, drift to different directions, and whatnot. And especially for beginners, it's always good to have that, guided type of meditation. So let's talk about the Erotic Blueprint. So give us some highlights, on that. And how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so the Erotic Blueprints have been around for about 10 years, and I've been with them since their inception.
Oh, nice.
I was at the very first retreat where they were unveiled, and that's where I had my aha moment. So the 5 erotic blueprint types, and so what the erotic blueprints are is that they're types. It's a type system that describes different parts of us as erotic beings. And so there's 5 different types that were identified. And those are energetic, sensual, kinky, sexual, and shapeshifter. And I'll give you details on each one of them because each one is very unique. And a little secret is that we all have all of them in us. It's just that some are more prevalent than others. There's a quiz that you can take, which will tell you, based on how you answer the questions, like what your percentages are in each blueprint. And so it's a really great information, really great knowledge. So the energetic blueprint. So energetics are very, very sensitive to energy, both physically and emotionally. So, sexually, arousal can start way before any physical touch happens. So they love like a lot of space and tease and anticipation. So that's like the feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to Disneyland tomorrow, or it's Christmas morning tomorrow. Like that's the see my lover. I have a date tonight. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? They love stuff like that. Energetics, as their partner's arousal rises, so does theirs, because they can kind of ride that wave of energy that brings them up. Some of the things that turn off the energetic is that because of their hypersensitivity, they can short circuit. So if they're approached too fast, too soon with physical touch, they're like, whoa, give me some space. I need space. So that can short circuit. They can get really bombarded and overwhelmed with other people's energies and with just energy in general, like being out in public, being out in society. Like they need to cocoon, and take care of their energy, and then they can go back out. Sometimes touch can feel like pain to an energetic. And so that's why they like a lot of space. And they love really light touch or no touch at all. And each one of the blueprints likes a different kind of touch, and they also like different words. So I'll get into the touch and the speaking in a bit, because these are like the tools that you can use in your intimate life and in your sexuality to enhance things.
Mm-hmm.
So the sensual blueprint. So this is all about our five senses: taste, touch, sight, sound, smell. Sensual people and the sensual blueprint, they have an amazing capacity to receive pleasure through sensation. Their orgasms can be multisensory experiences. They can be turned on by a food, a taste, a sound. Like music is really important to them. Foodies, like we can put something in our mouth and just, that sound that we make. I mean, we're having an orgasm in our mouth at that moment. And, sensuals really just love the journey. They can, when they're relaxed, they can indulge without any focus on any end goal. They can just go on and on without the need to like get anywhere or be anywhere or do anything. Some of the turn offs or the shadows of the sensual blueprint are that they struggle getting out of their head and into their body. So you were talking about like all the brain chatter and the mind chatter and everything that, all the thoughts that we have. Our minds can run away with all these distracting thoughts, which then take us out of our intimacy with our partner. We are more focused on the shopping list and what we need to do later on today and what's going on next week and the which will completely take us out of the present moment and stresses our bodies out. And sensuals really need to be relaxed in order to enjoy pleasure. Sensuals can seem incredibly picky and like easily thrown off when things aren't their way, when things aren't perfect. They can also feel like their partner never gets it right, that everything their partner does is wrong. And that's one of the ones that I needed to heal from, that I needed to change. And I'm happy to share how I did that and what my journey was with that, because all of these blueprints have superpowers, which are all the positive things of how awesome they are and what they love and what their turn-ons are. And then each one has a shadow, which is like the turn-offs, the things they don't like, the things that will take them out of pleasure and intimacy. So then there's the kinky blueprint, and the kinky is whatever is taboo to you. And there is a whole range and there's a whole spectrum, and the world of kink is vast because it's extremely creative, which is really awesome. It's really playful because it can be a lot in the mind. There's also a lot of physical sensation. So there's like psychological kink, and then there's physical kink, sensation-based kink, really. And so, like I said, it's a full spectrum that I can teach like hours and days of workshops on, because there's so many fun things. The beauty of the kinky blueprint is that you can really find deep healing in playing within a safe container of the kink, because the permission and the acceptance and the sharing of like your deepest, darkest secrets or desires, and someone receiving that and holding space for that is very, very healing. Some of the shadows of the kinky blueprint is that there can be a lot of shame, a lot of deep feelings of shame, because with the taboo, those are all the things that like we're not supposed to do, or our parents told us not to, or society says that we shouldn't. And so there can be a lot of like guilt and judgment of like, why do I want that? And why do I think this way? And what's wrong with me? There can be a lot of hiding, and kind of like sneaking around, getting found out. And sometimes like a certain pathway can be like the only pathway to arousal and pleasure. So being able to play in a safe kinky container and to play with different elements and aspects in kink, is really important, and it's really fun. Now we're going to get into the sexual blueprint, and the sexual blueprint is what we think of as sex, in society. So the sexual blueprint is all about nudity, nakedness, genitals, penetration, all of those things that we think of as the act of sex. And so some of the cool things about the sexual blueprint is that people who have a really high sexual blueprint, like they love sex. They love orgasms. They love giving orgasms. They love receiving. They love engaging. Like their world is so filled and enriched by being able to indulge, in the act of sex, that it feeds them, it fulfills them, and it makes them happier people. They're a lot of fun to play with because they can be like really joyful and like unashamed, like unabashedly, yes, let's get naked and go for it, right? They are thought of as like the cultural norm. We stereotype, men, like most men are sexual. Actually, there's a lot of men who are energetic and sensual, as much as they are sexual. So we kind of project this sexual blueprint on a lot of people when it actually is only just a part and a piece of them, of the big picture. And that's what I love about the erotic blueprints, is it really colors the entire picture. It covers like the entire spectrum of what sexuality is, instead of it being like in one lane. Sexuals really love getting to the orgasm. They like, that's their goal. And they're really keen on it. Some of the shadows of the sexual blueprint is that they can get way too focused. Like, we have to get there. I need to have an orgasm. Like, it's not successful if we don't. And then there can be a lot of pressure and stress. So for instance, if one partner is high in sensual blueprint, it's really important for them to feel relaxed before they have sex. And if they have a partner that's a sexual blueprint, the sexual blueprint wants to, in order to relax, they need to have sex. And so you can see how there can be a mismatch and a miscommunication, of what each partner needs and why. And so, in the sexual blueprint, genitals can become the focus. And like with an energetic, how I was talking about, energetics need a lot of space. And sometimes they don't want to be touched. They love like hovering hands over their bodies. Sexuals love to be touched. They want to be touched on their genitals. They go right there. And so for energetics, they can get shut down that way. And so like, that's something that was happening with my partner and I, because I'm high in energetic and he's high in sexual. And so no wonder we weren't connecting, because I was like, whoa, dude, slow down. Like, give me some time and space. And he was like, but I really need to relax. Like, this is the way that I relax. And so in understanding that, I was able to like stop judging him. I understood, okay, in order for him to feel better and to feel complete and to relax, like, this is what he needs. And so we were able to communicate better what our needs and desires were and are and still are and changing, so that we can have a fulfilling connection and both feel satiated, filled, complete, in our blueprints. And then the fifth blueprint is the shapeshifter blueprint. And the shapeshifter blueprint is a combination of all of the other 4 blueprints. So shapeshifters are energetic, they're sensual, they're kinky, they're sexual, and they kind of change. They can go in between. Like, they're amazing lovers because they're easily fluent in all of the erotic blueprint types and speak all those languages. And so they have a huge capacity to be in pleasure because they can play in so many different ways. And so they are never boring because they're ever changing, which can also be a little frustrating because if you're always changing and something you liked yesterday, you don't like today, you're like, wait a minute, what the heck? What's wrong? They could be very, like, seen as very complicated. So if you're the kind of person that has been told you're too much, you're too complicated, oh my gosh, you're insatiable, because they love it all and they want more of it. And so if you've been told any of those things, you're insatiable, you probably are high in shapeshifter. Some of the shadows with the shapeshifter is that, like, they're often starving in their blueprints, because if you have, let's say, a sensual partner and you're a shapeshifter, your sensual partner is always going to want to go to the sensual blueprints and be in taste and touch and sight and sound. But the shapeshifter's like, yeah, but I want some energetic and I need a little bit of kink. And when are we going to get to the sex, part? Mm-hmm. And the sensual's like, but we don't need to have sex. I'm good in pleasure. Like, let's just keep going in this, so you can see how these things interact with each other and how it becomes a communication. So, yeah. So,
and I totally could see why you need a coach.
Yes.
And you know what? Just listening to you, I'm thinking the founder, Jaya, who wrote a book, how did she come up with all that classification?
Yeah. And so she worked with many couples and individuals in their sexuality, and she noticed that there were very common, like, kind of standard things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That she identified. She was like, oh, these people are highly energetic because, like, I can not even be touching them and, like, their bodies are moving and shaking, like the Reiki practice.
Share with us how you were able to overcome that struggle or that difficulty that you were having, knowing that you're this type.
Yeah.
And how was it that it kind of alleviate whatever the unboring or the whatever the challenges that you were having with your partner?
Yeah. So I discovered that I'm an energetic sensual that likes some psychological kink. And then I can get into my sexual blueprint. And my partner, his blueprint is high in sexual. And so the ways that we overcame is that I learned what my energetic needed. And so my energetic really needs to feel safe and needs lots of space. And so before engaging, I need him to just hover his hands over my body. It doesn't matter where it is. Over my head, over my back, over my genitals. So before he even goes there, he hovers his hands over my body, and he allows me, and you can see when you do this practice, and part of having a coach is that I coach people through these practices, because a lot of us, like, we've only been taught go for the genitals, right? Or go for the hugs and the cuddles. And, like, there's so many other things that we can do. And so by learning different touch skills and ways of touch in each of the blueprints, I can then communicate to my partner, oh, yes, please hover your hands over my genitals. That feels really good. And you can visibly see people's bodies relax when they're fed and they're satiated. And then from there, then I can say, I'd really love some sensual touch. So I'd love some contouring massage. That would feel really great. Could you, like, hold my hip bones? And so I learned what kinds of touches that I liked. And then I learned to communicate them to my partner. And he, he's so wonderful because he's a sexual blueprint. He was like fair game. He was like, please, I want to know what turns you on, because I want to be able to get there with you. I want you to feel more relaxed, and I want you to feel more in pleasure so that we can go there more often and that you can enjoy yourself more often. And so he expanded his sexual blueprint into energetic and into sensual. And now he is a shapeshifter. So he can play in all of the different blueprints. All I have to do is ask. And that was one of the biggest things that I hadn't been doing because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I needed. I had only, had like romantic movies, right? And some sex scenes as a guide to like what's supposed to happen. I didn't actually have like real examples demonstrated and shown to me and practiced on me that I could then incorporate and really embody. So I spent a lot of time getting into my body because I was kind of disconnected. When we have a tendency to be all up in our heads, especially when we have stressful jobs, we sort of leave our bodies, right? We kind of like leave them by the wayside and we're too focused in our minds. So I really started going in and I started developing my femininity more. Mm-hmm. I started taking dance classes. I started wearing dresses. I started wearing more colors. I started learning who I was as an erotic being, and I stopped judging my partner for who I thought he was. And then we just practiced, and we've been practicing for over 10 years, how to be better partners, how to communicate more and enhancing our touch and communication skills.
So you've been together how long now with your partner?
24 years now.
24 years.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And about 7 years into our relationship is when I was going to leave him. And that's when we started working with Jaya. And so the last 15 years, like the blueprints saved our relationship. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work is because I had one foot out the door and I was about to throw it all away and burn it all down, and start anew. But, problems follow us wherever we go.
Yep.
Wherever
you carry yourself with you, right?
Yep.
So I think, having this five erotic blueprints, knowing your partner's blueprint, what turns them on, what turns them off. And at the same time, you've heard, I would imagine, the 5 languages of love. Yes. Right. So yes. I think in tandem, that would be powerful.
Oh, yes. Very powerful because I like to say that the erotic blueprints are like the love languages for sex, and knowing your love languages, like one of my love languages is quality time. And that is one of my partner's love languages as well. One of his love languages is touch, of course, because he's high and sexual, right? But one of my love languages is acts of service. I like to be of service. That's my energetic. That's my sensual. That's my caretaker, So yes, all of this information in tandem.
Oh my God. Yeah. I could imagine anyone that's have that 1 foot out the door would kind of have, this therapy with you. How many coaches are there? Like you.
There are 250 coaches that have been through the coaching program. And I want to say there's maybe like half that are actively coaching. And what's beautiful about coaching is that each of us have our own modality and our own energy and our own specialty and our own stories. And so, whereas mine is like being in a long-term relationship and dealing with frustration, there are others out there that like whatever your issue is, like I have a resource for you, no matter what your gender, sexual orientation, whatever you've been through in the past. A lot of, all the coaches are trauma informed and they have a wide variety in knowledge. So whatever you need, like.
So how does a session look like? So, walk us through a session. How does it look like? Mm-hmm.
So, a typical session lasts from anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, depending. And we always start with pleasure first. And what pleasure first is that we spend like 5 minutes or so really getting present in our bodies, really dropping in. It's like a meditation. It can be a guided meditation, or it can just be a simply like, just be here in this space right now. And how do you feel? And how does your body feel? Because like I was saying, we're usually up in our heads. And so I have a lot of clients that come that are like, oh my gosh, I have all these questions and all these things happen. And it's like, okay, great. Yes, we will get there. And so let's get into our bodies and and then proceed from there. And so we always start with pleasure first, because pleasure it enhances your sense of well-being, right? I mean, pleasure has so many benefits, physical and emotional and mental and spiritual, that we always start with that. And then we go into celebrations, because celebrating things like gets that really positive, yummy, juicy energy flowing, right? As I was saying earlier, I had a lot of judgment against my partner, right? So, can you imagine coming to a session and being like, all these things are wrong, instead of coming to a session and being like, oh my gosh, I'm celebrating that my partner did this thing right. Like, only positive feedback. It's amazing. It's miraculous when we celebrate ourselves and each other. And so I always do celebrations because it is so much fun. And then we get into all the juicy nitty gritty stuff of like, okay, what's going on? What's not working? What do you want to focus on today? And whatever is up. And then we can do an accelerated evolution process on the part that wants to be heard, or the answer that wants to be found. And we can also talk about like tips and tools, and different skills. There's a beautiful program that Jaya and Ian, Jaya, my mentor, and her partner Ian, that they filmed a few years ago, called the Erotic Blueprint Breakthrough Program. And it's 8 modules, and I call it the sex education I never had, because it walks you through touch skills, speaking skills, healing, the foundation, you're determining your blueprints. We play games with different kinds of touch and determining your blueprints. Because the quiz is great, because from an intellectual perspective, it can give you your percentages, but then we really get into the body, and the body doesn't lie. And so we test out all these things that we think, on your body, and see what your blueprints are. What does your body respond to in all these different touch? And so a typical session I work with people for 8 weeks, like a minimum of 8 weeks, because there's 8 modules, and I like to walk people through each one of the modules and see what they discovered, see what their insights are, elaborate more on things. And so we will go into whatever subject matter, in that module, or whatever the burning desire is on that day. Mm-hmm. And then we always close with wins, insights, and learnings. And, anything that is left, like anything that feels missing, disempowering, or incomplete, we address that. And then we go into, closing. So that's what a typical session looks like.
So it's 8 weeks. What is the usual cost for that, the average?
It really depends. Because if you just want to do the Erotic Blueprint Breakthrough course, self-study course, it starts at $2,000, and that's without any coaching or any accountability or any support. And then packages go up from there. So I have various packages that start at $5,000 and then go up to $50,000, depending on how deep do you want to go? Like, when we begin, I find that with my clients, 8 sessions is scratching the surface. It's giving you a little bit of knowledge and information, and can make a big impact in your life. And then as we deep dive into different blueprints, like, your whole world can expand. It can help in business issues, in family drama, in life in general, in self-awareness and transformation. So depending on what it is that you're looking for, there's a package. I co-create and custom create packages for people.
So it's a great investment for those that really want something that could last a lifetime of pleasure, satisfaction, and joy, right?
Yes, it is.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about relationship. A meaningful relationship makes or breaks your life.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be a great investment.
Yeah. And let me tell you, a coaching package is cheaper than a divorce.
Great one. So you have to look at the the opportunity cost, right? And all
Yes.
the cost analysis,
Yes.
of this. Listening to you, and you mentioned about, self, right? Self-love, self-care, and I'm all about self-care. And I think that's how our paths have crossed, because it was to a medical, wellness spa where one would just want to pamper themselves. And there you are having a talk with all these high-powered women. That was a great afternoon. Thanks to, the organizers who actually, I was clueless that there's going to be that happening. But wow. So this is amazing, because I've never heard of anything, like this. Now, so, here, there's all these addictions, right? So there's, addictions in drugs, addiction in X. There's also that, the porno addiction that is actually, prevalent. It's like a 95 billion worldwide, industry, right? So it's a lot. And apparently 35% of internet downloads have that. And out of those, 1 out of 8 have, sexual, violence, in it. So, it's a staggering number, but, do you think knowing these would help with that addiction?
Oh, most definitely. There are a lot of clients, that I have heard about that have come to coaches, with porn addictions. And if you're willing and ready to make a change in your life, like, these tools will help you. They absolutely can help you and transform.
And then, so medically, and sanitary, situation wise, those that are not monogamous, have you helped those that are not to see the essence and the pleasure and the meaning of not having multiple partners?
I mean, whatever sexual orientation and relationship style, it's all about safety. And it's, like you're saying, it's self-care, and it's also care for others. And so there are ways that we can engage in having multiple partners or not, and do it in a safe way, in a consensual way, with lots of communication, with care, and with, communicating what your needs are and how you'd like to get them met. Because there's staggering statistics on all this, sexually transmitted diseases, STIs out there, that a lot of people, have them. And there is a way that, like, we still can enjoy pleasure and keep ourselves and others safe. Most definitely.
Laurie, it's actually pretty cool that we've met, and now I'm aware of this, because for the most part, not a lot of people do. It's still truly a taboo. And you're absolutely right with what you said about, we grow up only knowing the idea of what it should look like, right? The sex part. There's really no education per se, on that subject matter, more so even talk about it. It's not something that people would be too cool to talk about it. But I guess for our listeners out there, if you're in a relationship and it's a relationship that you want to be meaningful, fulfilling, and less headache and whatnot, it's good to explore, this avenue with having a certified coach. So for our listeners out there, what is the best way for them to reach you?
The best way to reach me is to go to my website, which is www.laurielove.org. And that's LaurieLove.org. And from there, it has all of my contact information, my email, my Instagram, Facebook, cell phone number. You can book a Passionate Possibilities call with me. And that's how we can
take
connect.
It from there, right?
Yes.
So the other thing that I also gathered with you, it's once you go within, and you learn about yourself more, then it's not going to be too much of a challenge, and you're just going to be more focused on, what's the communication, what's the touch, what is something that could, maybe enhance the experience for both yourself and your partner, right?
Yeah. The erotic blueprints take the guesswork out of sex.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So knowledge is power with anything.
Yes. Most definitely. And, we don't talk about it enough, but yet 35% of downloads are porn. And so it's something that we want and that we need and that we crave and that we think about and that we desire. And so, I'm here to talk about it. Let's normalize it. Let's have these conversations and let's make it healthy so that we don't have to be addicted. We don't have to be taboo is wonderful because it's very feeding. And like I was saying, it can also that can lead to the only avenue when there are so many other avenues and streets and canals and oceans, of options.
So enough of that hypocrisy, right, Laurie?
Yes. Yes.
I love it. All right. So wonderful. Hey, this concludes our show, and I wish you continued success, Laurie.
Thank you.
And for all our viewers out there, all our listeners, stay focused, and until next time.